Republicans taking a jackhammer to Merrick Garland on Capitol Hill, Biden's AG testifying under oath before the House Judiciary Committee and getting peppered by numerous questions over his handling of the Hunter Biden investigation.
I reaffirm today, I am not the president's lawyer. I will add, I am not Congress's prosecutor.
Have you had personal contact with anyone at FBI headquarters about the Hunter Biden investigation?
I don't recollect the answer to that question.
Can you tell us about any briefings or discussions that you personally have had with Mr. Weiss regarding any and all federal investigations of Hunter Biden?
Under oath, my testimony today is that I promised the Senate I would not intrude in his investigation.
What I'm wondering is why you guys let the statute of limitations lapse for those tax years that dealt with Burisma income.
You will, at the appropriate time, have the opportunity to ask Mr. Weiss that question, and he will no doubt address it in the public report that will be transmitted to the Congress.
Then Garland blowing his lid at a GOP lawmaker who criticized the Justice Department for targeting Catholic and pro-life groups.
Do you agree that traditional Catholics are violent extremists? Yes or no? Yes or no?
The idea that someone with my family background would discriminate against any religion is so outrageous, so absurd.
Mr. Attorney General, it was your FBI that did this. It was your FBI that was sending, and we have the memos, we have the emails, we're sending undercover agents into Catholic churches.
And Hunter is still trying to get sweetheart deals. He tried to cite traffic in a bid to plead not guilty by video arraignment to felony gun charges. But the judge says he better show up. So, Harold, because you have absolutely nothing to do in the daytime, you watched the entire thing. Must be nice. How do you think both sides did?
Well, I didn't view it as both sides. I thought that I didn't fully understand the purpose of the hearing. But Congress has every right to exercise oversight on any matter that they want. I thought that he answered. I didn't see the whole hearing. I saw pieces of it. I had it on the background in my office, and I watched that exchange because it looked like they were getting heated. That congressman that was asking about the Catholic Church. If we played his answer, he seemed offended that he was even being asked this question because Mr. Garland is Jewish. His family members, a grandfather, I believe there's relatives that were Holocaust survivors, and his mom worked in the elderly services community, serving them in Chicago. So I think he was offended by that, and maybe, Judge, he should have answered right off, but I think he was just so taken aback. Two, I think that it's interesting to me the oversight that these guys want to exercise because I saw Jim Jordan go down to the border and they conducted a hearing there. I want them to give us a tough bill to make the White House uncomfortable, meaning things that they don't want to do, whether it's fighting fentanyl, fighting the illegal entry of fentanyl, and certainly those who are coming across the border illegally. Give us just so many other things they could be doing. But I didn't understand the purpose of the hearing. I thought it went on a long time. He answered their questions. I think what they wanted to do was try to get after the Hunter Biden thing, which is fine, but he's answered the questions. And I would remind everybody, Chris Wray is a Trump appointee, the FBI director. Bill Barr was a Trump appointee. I remind everybody that Mr. Weiss was a Trump appointee. Now, again, this is not to get on anyone's skin here, but we talk about this stuff like it's so political. It is. They were appointed by Republicans, and the Democrats held them over. This Democratic president held them over.
Judge, I can see you squirming over there. You're ready to explode.
First of all,
I'm your friend now.
Yeah, you are my friend, and I love you, but you're wrong. First of all, you said he answered all the questions. He didn't answer the questions.
Which question?
He was... he doesn't recollect if he's had contact with the FBI about Hunter Biden's case. Is there anything more absurd in the universe than that statement? And I'll tell you why. Doesn't recollect is a classic example of a potential defendant who's trying to avoid a perjury trap. Yeah. All right? Because we all know, and everyone in America knows, that Merrick Garland had to know something about that case, and I'll tell you why. Because it went on for 5 years. You don't think at some point Merrick Garland, who appointed David Weiss, has said, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, Harold, but the Democrats get a choice for a United States attorney. He was a Democrat choice, and that's a deal that was made. All right? So David Weiss is a Democrat choice. He gets the blue slip, and he's now the U.S. attorney. Now, 5 years. You don't think Joe Biden is saying to Merrick Garland, what's going on with my son's case? What's going on with the statute of limitation? What's going on? I hear that there are whistleblowers out there. You know, why is this thing taking years? And he knows his boss is saying, my son's done nothing wrong. And the concept, the idea that I don't ever remember talking to the FBI it is the excuse that everyone used to not get caught in a perjury trap. Now, the other thing is, he said he made the decision to make David Weiss, or he didn't make the decision to make David Weiss special counsel. Okay, so even after all of the blow up of that plea deal that had never been done before in the history of the Department of Justice, making that plea offer, he says, I never considered anyone but Weiss because I didn't want to disrupt things. So why do you appoint the same guy who put a deal in that blew up and is the whole reason behind the hearing, which is Americans feeling that we have a dual system of justice?
All right. I want to go to Jesse.
We don't have the debate rules. If your name gets invoked, you get a...
We would go on forever. Jesse, before you answer this question, just remember that Howard Stern might be watching. So consider your answer. What do you think? How do you think Merrick Garland did? How do you think the Republicans did?
Baba Booey. So Garland conducts investigations of everything and everybody, but he can't answer anything because everything's under investigation.
Perfect. Yeah.
So if things weren't being investigated, then he could answer? So he just investigates everybody, so he doesn't have to answer a stupid question. I don't like this. It's boring. And even Eric Holder was more forthcoming. Bill Barr has been more forthcoming. His answer was, I made a promise to the Senate, so I can't answer. Oh, you made a little promise. Oh, did you made a little promise? Don't answer. I can't answer this question. Talk to Weiss, the special counsel, about it. Well, he's not testifying. You're testifying. Answer the question. Or I don't recollect the answer to that question. You don't recollect what they're asking, or you don't recollect the answer. It's too lawyerly for me. I don't like it. I hate to fact check you, Harold. Don't like to, but will. Weiss was blue slipped. He wasn't Trump appointed. So Carper and the other guy with the bald head at Delaware said, here's our guy. He's been a Democrat his whole career.
Who was he appointed by?
All right?
President Trump.
And Hunter is now saying he wants to appear via Zoom because he doesn't want to, like, gnarl up traffic in Delaware. Okay, heaven forbid. Donald Trump snarled up traffic in, like, New York and Atlanta and Miami and Washington, D.C. I mean, he's the president, former president, Secret Service everywhere. Helicopters, they had, like, Hunter is going to snarl up traffic in Wilmington. Really? You're not that important, Hunter.
Yeah, they don't even have cars in Wilmington, Dana.
A horse and buggy.
Yes, exactly. What did you make of this hearing?
Well, I don't have a lot more to add here. I do think it was interesting, though, that one of the things he kept saying was he couldn't speak to all of these supposed scandals at his department, and he insisted that he only knew what was in the media.
Yes.
So, I mean, but I also know what's in the media, but I'm not in charge of the Justice Department. And if I had heard of these things, I would have said, I need a brief on that. What's going on here? Tell me a little bit more about this. And it's curious that he is so incurious about his own agency. The other thing is, I'm not sure there's a better representative of the Biden administration putting this moderate face on somebody who is actually doing a lot of what the left wants, right? So remember when President Obama appointed him, or wanted to appoint him to the Supreme Court, or nominated him, and McConnell said, I think we're gonna hold on that because, you know, Scalia just died, we're just gonna wait on that. But Obama kept saying, what are you talking about? He's the most moderate, most centrist. He's even kind of a center-right kind of guy. The Republicans should love him.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess we learned another lesson.
Look at that now.
Look at that now, Dana. Look at that. No, seriously, look at it.
Look at it.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.